Dr. Alan Carter pressed his face against the cold glass of the observation window. His breath made small clouds on the surface as he stared into the darkness of space. Something was coming toward Earth, and it was not human. The object had appeared on their screens 3 days ago. At first, the team at the Horizon's Edge research station thought it was just another piece of space junk. But this thing was different. It moved with purpose, changing direction in ways that no natural object could. The surface of the strange ship reflected light in patterns that hurt to look at for too long. "Alan, you need to see this," called Captain Lisa Morgan from across the room. Her voice carried a tone he had never heard before. Fear mixed with excitement in a way that made his stomach twist. Alan walked over to where Lisa stood in front of the main computer screen. The display showed rows of numbers and symbols that meant nothing to him. But Lisa's face told him everything he needed to know. Whatever was on that screen was important. "What am I looking at?" Alan asked, leaning closer to the screen. Lisa pointed to a section of the display. "These are mathematical equations, complex ones. The alien ship sent them to us about an hour ago. It took our best people 3 days just to figure out what language they were using." Alan felt his heart beat faster. They had always wondered if humans were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and that answer was sending them math problems. "What do the equations say?" he asked. Lisa turned to face him. "It's a greeting, but not just hello. They're asking us to prove we're smart enough to talk to them. They want us to solve puzzles to show we have intelligence." Across the room, a tall man with graying hair walked toward them. Commander Jake Phillips had been in charge of the station for 5 years. He had seen many strange things in space, but nothing like this. "We just got another message," Jake said, holding a printed paper in his hand. "They call themselves the Vorthic Collective. They say they've been watching us for months. They want to test our intelligence level." Alan took the paper and read it slowly. The message was simple, but the meaning was huge. The aliens wanted to give humans a series of tests. If humans passed, they would be welcomed into some kind of galactic community. If humans failed, well, the message did not say what would happen then. "How long do we have?" Lisa asked. Jake looked at his watch. 48 hours for the first test. They're sending it now." The main screen flickered and changed. New symbols appeared, flowing across the display like water. But these symbols were different from the first message. They seemed to move and shift, creating patterns that made Alan's eyes water. Dr. Michelle Adams rushed into the room. She was the station's best mathematician, and her face was pale with excitement. "This is incredible," she said, pointing at the screen. "This isn't just a math problem. It's 17 different science problems all mixed together. Physics, chemistry, biology, even philosophy. I've never seen anything like it." Alan studied the symbols on the screen. They seemed to dance and change as he watched them. How long would it normally take to solve something like this? Michelle shook her head. "For most species, the message says it usually takes about 6 months. Some species never solve it at all. And we have 2 days," Lisa said quietly. Jake cleared his throat to get everyone's attention. "I'm calling in every expert we have. Mathematicians, physicists, computer scientists, anyone who might be able to help. This isn't just about passing a test. This is about proving that humanity deserves a place in the galaxy." Alan watched as the alien symbols continued their strange dance on the screen. Each pattern seemed to contain hidden meanings, layers of information that revealed themselves only when viewed from the right angle. He thought about all the humans throughout history who had looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone was looking back. Now they knew. Someone had been watching, and they were about to find out if humanity was smart enough to join them. The next few hours passed quickly. Scientists arrived from all over Earth, brought by the fastest ships available. The station filled with the brightest minds the human race could offer. They came from universities, research centers, and government labs. Each brought their own area of expertise, their own way of looking at problems. Dr. Patricia Wells arrived from the Cambridge Institute. She specialized in pattern recognition and had solved puzzles that others thought impossible. Engineer Rick Stone came from NASA, where he designed systems that had to work perfectly millions of miles from Earth. Economist Nanya Bell flew in from Tokyo, where she studied how complex systems interacted with each other. As the team assembled, Alan noticed something interesting. The aliens had sent one type of problem, but the humans were approaching it from dozens of different angles. Some looked at it as pure mathematics. Others saw it as a physics problem. A few even treated it like art, looking for beauty in the patterns. The alien ship moved closer to Earth while the humans worked. Through the observation windows, they could see it more clearly now. The surface was smooth like glass, but seemed to contain layers of light that moved underneath. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. 6 hours left, Jake announced to the room full of scientists. Alan looked around at the faces of his colleagues. Some looked worried, others excited. All of them were focused on the screens in front of them, working to solve a puzzle created by minds they could not even imagine. The future of humanity might depend on what happened in the next 6 hours. The aliens were waiting for an answer, and the humans were determined to give them one they would never forget. Dr. Michelle Adams put down her pen and looked at the final calculations on her screen. Her hands were shaking slightly from too much coffee and too little sleep. Around her, the other scientists were still working, but she had finished her part of the puzzle. Now all they could do was wait. The alien ship had moved even closer to Earth during the night. Through the observation windows, they could see strange lights moving across its surface. The patterns reminded Michelle of neurons firing in a brain, as if the ship itself was thinking. "Time's up," announced Commander Jake Phillips. His voice carried across the room, causing several scientists to look up from their work. "Send the answer." Dr. Alan Carter pressed the transmission button. The human solution flowed from their computers toward the alien ship in a stream of mathematical symbols and scientific formulas. Everyone in the room held their breath. They did not have to wait long for a response. The air in the main room began to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The shimmer grew brighter and more focused until 3 tall figures appeared in the center of the room. The humans stepped back in surprise, but no one ran. They had been expecting this moment. The aliens were nothing like what humans had imagined. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that seemed to be made of transparent crystal. Light moved through their bodies in slow, peaceful waves. Their eyes were large and had many different surfaces, like looking into a broken mirror that somehow still worked perfectly. The tallest alien stepped forward. When it spoke, the words came not from its mouth, but seemed to appear directly in the humans' minds. "I am High Assessor Zenth Ka of the Vorthak Collective," the alien said. "We have come to evaluate your species for inclusion in the galactic community." Dr. Patricia Wells found her voice first. "We're honored by your visit. Did we pass your first test?" The alien's large eyes turned toward her, and she felt as if her soul was being examined. "We must review your answers. Please wait." High Assessor. Zenth Ka moved to a device that had materialized with the aliens. It looked like a combination of crystal and metal, with surfaces that changed color as the alien touched them. The other 2 aliens, who had not spoken, stood nearby watching the humans with expressions that were impossible to read. Alan noticed that the second alien, slightly shorter than the first, seemed to be studying the humans themselves rather than their answers. Its eyes moved from person to person, as if trying to understand something puzzling. After several minutes that felt like hours, High Assessor Zenth Ka turned back to the humans. The light patterns in its crystal skin had changed, moving faster, and in more complex designs. Your answers, the alien said slowly, are not what we expected. Michelle felt her heart sink. Had they failed already? Had humanity's first chance to join the galactic community ended before it really began? You not only solved our puzzle correctly, the alien continued, but you found 3 errors in the question itself. You corrected problems that we did not know existed. This is highly unusual. The second alien, who introduced itself as Science Coordinator Yethray, stepped forward. In 50,000 years of testing species across the galaxy, no civilization has ever done this. Most struggle to solve even part of the problem. You completed it and improved it. How is this possible? Engineer Rick Stone cleared his throat. We worked together. Each person looked at the problem differently. When we combined our different ways of thinking, we found things that none of us would have found alone. The third alien, who had remained silent until now, made a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. High Assessor Zenth Ka translated. Communications Specialist Vel TH says your method is unknown to us. Most species work individually or in small groups of similar thinkers. You combine different types of intelligence into one solution. Dr. Patricia Wells smiled. That's just how humans work. We've always been better together than apart. The aliens exchanged what appeared to be looks of confusion. Their crystal skin patterns shifted and changed in ways that suggested intense communication. We must administer a second test, High Assessor Zenth Ki announced. This one is more complex. It involves managing resources across multiple star systems while dealing with unpredictable events. Our best strategists required 4 years to develop an acceptable solution. The device in the center of the room projected a 3-dimensional display that filled half the space. It showed star systems, planets, trade routes, and resource flows in colors that humans had never seen before. Numbers and symbols floated through the display like a galaxy made of mathematics. You have the same time limit, the alien said, 48 hours. Michelle looked at the incredible complexity of the display and felt overwhelmed. This was not just a math problem or a science question. This was like trying to manage the economy of an entire section of the galaxy. But as she watched her human colleagues begin to study the display, she noticed something that made her feel hopeful. Each person was approaching the problem from a completely different angle. The economist was tracking resource flows. The physicist was calculating gravitational effects. The computer scientist was looking for patterns in the data streams. Dr. Nina Bell, the economist from Tokyo, was already making notes about market relationships that spanned light years. This is like a global economy, she said, but with physics. We don't have on Earth. Engineer Rick Stone was working with Dr. Carl Davis, the astrophysicist, to understand how stellar phenomena could affect the entire system. If this star goes nova, Rick said, pointing to a bright point in the display, it changes everything downstream. The aliens watched this human activity with growing fascination. Science Coordinator Yethra moved closer to observe the humans as they worked. They do not follow standard problem-solving protocols, Yethra said to High Assessor Zenth Ka. They jump between different approaches without logical progression. High Assessor Zenth Ka nodded slowly. Yet they seemed to understand the problem better than species with much longer to study it. This requires investigation. Alan noticed the aliens watching them and realized something important. The test was not just about solving the problem. The aliens were studying how humans thought, how they worked together, how they approached the impossible. Humanity was not just being tested, they were being discovered. The second test had taken the humans 36 hours to complete. Dr. Patricia Wells stood before the 3-dimensional display watching as the final calculations processed through the system. Around her, the other scientists looked exhausted, but proud. They had worked without stopping, taking turns to rest while others continued the work. Engineer Rick Stone stretched his tired muscles and looked at the alien observers. High Assessor Zenthka and Science Coordinator Yethray had not moved from their positions for hours, watching every move the humans made. Their crystal bodies pulsed with rapid light patterns that suggested intense thought. "We have 12 different solutions," announced Dr. Nina Bell, the economist. She pointed to various sections of the holographic display where different colored paths showed resource flows and management strategies. Each one is better than the others in different ways. Dr. Michelle Adams nodded in agreement. Some solutions are faster. Others use fewer resources. Some work better when stars behave normally. Others handle disasters better. We could not pick just one. High Assessor Zenthka approached the display, its large eyes examining each solution path. The light patterns in its body moved so quickly. They looked like lightning trapped in crystal. After several minutes of study, it turned to face the humans. "Impossible," the alien said, and for the first time, its mental voice carried emotion. "You have not only solved the problem, but you have exceeded our best solution by more than 300% efficiency. How did you accomplish this?" Science Coordinator Yethra moved closer to the display, its multiple faceted eyes reflecting the colored paths of the human solutions. "Our strategists are the finest minds in the galaxy. They spent decades creating this test. How did you surpass them in less than 2 days?" Dr. Alan Carter stepped forward. "We did not work the same way. Your strategists did. We combined different types of thinking. When the economist found a good trade route, the physicist checked if gravity would affect it. When the engineer designed a supply system, the mathematician calculated the best timing. The third alien, communications specialist Vel Th, made its wind chime sound again. This time it seemed more urgent, almost excited. High Assessor Zenthke translated. "Vel Th says your methods are completely unknown in galactic civilization. Most species solve problems step by step, following logical rules. You solve problems by dancing around them, approaching from all directions at once." The aliens moved away from the humans and began communicating among themselves. Their crystal bodies flashed with rapid light patterns that hurt to look at directly. The humans could not understand the alien language, but the tone seemed to be one of amazement and confusion. After several minutes, High Assessor Zenthia returned to the humans. "We must contact our home world. What you have accomplished requires immediate review by the High Council." Dr. Patricia Wells felt a chill of worry. "Is that good or bad for us?" "We do not know," the alien replied honestly. "In 50,000 years of galactic assessment, no species has ever performed of the 85th level on our tests. You are operating at levels that do not exist on our measurement scale." The main communication screen flickered to life, showing symbols that moved and changed in patterns more complex than anything the humans had seen before. High Assessor Zenthka stood before the screen and began transmitting a report to its home world. While they waited for a response, Science Coordinator Yethra approached the human team. "We must understand your thinking process. How do you combine so many different approaches to problem solving?" Engineer Rick Stone thought for a moment. "From the time we are children, humans learn that there are many ways to look at any problem. We do not just use our brains to calculate. We use our imagination, our feelings, our experience with other problems." Dr. Michelle Adams added, "We also know that we are stronger when we work together. No single human is as smart as a group of humans helping each other." The aliens' light patterns shifted to slower, more thoughtful movements. "This is very different from how other species approach intelligence. Most civilizations value individual achievement and logical precision above all else. Dr. Nina Bell smiled. Logic is important, but it is not everything. Sometimes the best solutions come from ideas that seem crazy at first. We test crazy ideas to see if they work. The communication screen suddenly blazed with urgent symbols. High Assessor Zenth Ka read the message, and its entire body flashed with surprise. The High Council has ordered the deployment of the Transcendence Protocol, it announced. This is our most advanced test, designed for species that have evolved beyond biological limitations. It has never been given to a species still living in physical bodies. Communications specialist Vel TH made rapid wind chime sounds that seemed almost worried. Vel 2H is correct to be concerned, High Assessor Zenth Ka said. The Transcendence Protocol involves concepts that exist only in theoretical mathematics. It requires solving paradoxes that have puzzled the greatest minds in the galaxy for millions of years. Dr. Alan Carter looked around at his tired colleagues. They had already pushed themselves beyond normal human limits, but now they faced something even more challenging. What happens if we cannot solve it? He asked. The alien was quiet for a long moment. No species has ever solved the Transcendence Protocol completely. A few have managed partial solutions after centuries of work. Most species who attempt it conclude that the problems have no real answers. Dr. Patricia Wells stepped forward. But you are going to give it to us anyway. The High Council believes your species may represent something new in galactic civilization. High Assessor Zenth Ka replied. If you can solve even part of the Transcendence Protocol, it will change our understanding of what intelligence means. The display in the center of the room began to change, showing new symbols and patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could properly see. Just looking at them made several people feel dizzy. You have 72 hours. The alien announced. This time, we will not just observe. We will participate. Your methods of thinking may teach us something about our own limitations. As the humans gathered around the impossible display, they realized they were no longer just taking a test. They were about to challenge the fundamental assumptions of an entire galactic civilization. Dr. Patricia Wells looked at the impossible display floating in the center of the room and felt her mind trying to understand something that should not exist. The symbols moved in patterns that seemed to bend space itself, creating shapes that her eyes could see, but her brain could not accept. This is unlike anything we have ever encountered, she said to the assembled team. Around her, the brightest minds humanity could offer stared at the Transcendence Protocol with expressions of wonder and confusion. High Assessor Zenth Ka stood nearby, its crystal body pulsing with slow, thoughtful light patterns. The problems you see before you exist only in theoretical mathematics. They deal with concepts that have no physical form, paradoxes that challenge the basic nature of reality itself. Dr. Michelle Adams walked closer to the display, her mathematician's mind trying to find some starting point in the chaos of symbols. How do we even begin to approach something like this? Science Coordinator Yethra answered, most species that attempt the Transcendence Protocol spend decades just trying to understand what the problems are asking. The concepts involved exist beyond normal thought processes. But Dr. Patricia Wells was not looking at the display the same way the others were. As a specialist in pattern recognition, she had learned to see connections that others missed. And something about the impossible symbols reminded her of something familiar. We need different kinds of thinking for this, she announced to the team. Not just scientists and mathematicians. We need people who think in ways that do not follow normal rules. Commander Jake Phillips raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Patricia smiled. We need artists, musicians, poets. People who are used to dealing with ideas that cannot be explained in normal language. Within hours, Patricia had assembled what she called her impossible team. Danny Wright, a jazz musician from New Orleans, arrived first. He took one look at the display and started humming a melody that seemed to match the movement of the symbols. "These patterns have rhythm," Danny said, surprising everyone. "Look, they repeat in sequences, like music. But the rhythm changes in ways that create harmony with itself." Maria Santos, a poet from Mexico City, flew in next. She studied the display for several minutes before speaking. "These are not just math problems. They are trying to describe feelings and experiences that have no words. Like trying to explain the color blue to someone who has never seen color." The most surprising addition to the team was Tommy Lee, a 6-year-old boy whose parents had discovered he could solve mathematical problems that confused university professors. Tommy looked at the display with the fearless curiosity that only children possess. "The numbers are playing hide and seek," Tommy announced matter-of-factly. "They pretend to be one thing, but they are really something else. It is like a game." Hi. Assessor Zenthka observed these new team members with growing fascination. "Your species continues to surprise us. No other civilization has ever approached the Transcendence Protocol with non-scientific minds." Science coordinator Yethra moved closer to watch as the unusual team began to work. "This goes against all established methods of advanced problem-solving. How can music and poetry help with theoretical mathematics?" Dr. Alan Carter had been wondering the same thing, but as he watched the team work, he began to understand. Danny Wright was identifying patterns in the mathematical sequences by treating them like musical compositions. When he found a rhythm, he would hum it, and somehow the melody revealed hidden connections between seemingly unrelated symbols. Maria Santos was doing something even more remarkable. She was translating the abstract mathematical concepts into metaphors and stories that made the impossible problems suddenly understandable. When she described a paradox as a river that flows uphill because it remembers being rain, the mathematical relationships became clear to the scientists. But it was Tommy Lee who made the breakthrough that changed everything. While the adults struggled with complex theories, the child saw the problems with simple, direct clarity. "The puzzle is asking the wrong question," Tommy announced, pointing at a section of the display. "It wants to know what happens when something is both true and not true at the same time. But that is easy. It becomes something new." Dr. Michelle Adams stared at the boy in amazement. "Can you show us what you mean?" Tommy walked up to the display and pointed to specific symbols. "Look, this part says that up is down and down is up. Everyone thinks that is impossible. But what if up and down do not matter? What if there is a third direction that is neither up nor down?" The room fell silent as the implications of the child's words sank in. The Transcendence Protocol was not just testing their ability to solve impossible problems. It was testing their ability to think beyond the limitations that made the problems seem impossible in the first place. Over the next 60 hours, the impossible team worked together in ways that amazed both the humans and the aliens. Danny Wright found musical patterns that revealed mathematical relationships. Maria Santos created metaphors that made abstract concepts concrete. Tommy Lee pointed out simple solutions that the adults had missed because they were thinking too hard. The scientists translated these insights into formal mathematical proofs, while the artists found new ways to approach each paradox. They did not just solve the problems in the Transcendence Protocol. They redefined what the questions were really asking. Dr. Patricia Wells watched as the final solutions appeared on the display. Not only had they solved every part of the Transcendence Protocol, but they had identified fundamental flaws in how the test itself was constructed. "We have found 3 major logical errors in the original problems," she announced to the alien observers. "The paradoxes only seem impossible because the questions contain false assumptions about the nature of reality." High Assessor Zenth K stood motionless for several minutes, its crystal body showing no light patterns at all. When it finally spoke, its mental voice carried emotions that its species had no names for. In millions of years of galactic civilization, it said slowly, no species has ever suggested that our most advanced test was flawed. You have not just solved the unsolvable. You have shown us that we were asking the wrong questions. Science. Coordinator Yethra approached the human team, its large eyes reflecting patterns of amazement and confusion. How is this possible? How does your species think in ways that we cannot even comprehend? Dr. Alan Carter looked around at his colleagues, scientists and artists, adults and children, all working together to achieve the impossible. Because we never stopped believing that impossible things could become possible, he said simply. We never stopped asking what if. High Assessor Zenthka stood in the center of the room, its crystal body completely still. For the first time since arriving at Earth, the alien seemed unable to speak. The light patterns that normally flowed through its transparent skin had stopped moving entirely. Dr. Alan Carter watched the alien with growing concern. Are you all right? The question seemed to break whatever spell had held the alien frozen. Slowly, light began to move through Zenthke's body again, but the patterns were different now. They moved in ways that suggested deep confusion and something that might have been fear. We must contact the Galactic Council immediately, Zenthka finally said. What has happened here will change everything we thought we knew about intelligence and consciousness. Science Coordinator Yethra was examining the human solutions to the Transcendence Protocol, its multiple eyes reflecting the impossible mathematics displayed on the screens. These results will be difficult for the Council to accept. Some members have existed for millions of years. They have never encountered anything like this. Communication specialist Vel TH made rapid wind chime sounds that seemed urgent and excited. Zenth K translated. Vel TH says the communication networks are already buzzing with reports about humanity. Word is spreading across the galaxy faster than we expected. Dr. Patricia Wells felt a mixture of pride and worry. Is that good or bad for us? We do not know, Zenthka replied honestly. Your species has accomplished something that should be impossible. You have redefined what we thought intelligence could be. Some civilizations will see this as wonderful. Others may see it as threatening. The main communication screen activated, showing symbols that moved in patterns more complex than anything the humans had seen before. Multiple alien voices spoke at once, creating a harmony of sounds that was both beautiful and overwhelming. High Assessor Zenthka stood before the screen and began delivering its report to the assembled representatives of the Galactic Council. As it spoke, the human team could see alien faces appearing on smaller screens around the room. Some looked curious, others confused, and a few seemed almost afraid. We have encountered a species that thinks in ways we cannot measure, Zenthka reported. They solve problems we cannot comprehend and demonstrate capabilities that redefine our understanding of what intelligence means. They approach the universe not as a puzzle to be solved, but as a canvas to be reimagined. One of the alien faces. On the screen, a being that looked like it was made of living metal spoke in a voice like thunder. This is unprecedented. How can a species so young possess such advanced cognitive abilities? Another alien, this one resembling a collection of floating crystals, added, their methods go against everything we know about proper problem solving. They use emotion, intuition, and creativity as if these were legitimate forms of intelligence. Dr. Michelle Adams stepped forward. With respect, those are legitimate forms of intelligence. We have never separated thinking from feeling, logic from imagination. For humans, they are all part of the same process. The metal alien's expression changed to something that might have been surprise. You speak as if consciousness itself is different for your species. Maybe it is, said Tommy Lee, the 6-year-old who had helped solve the impossible problems. Maybe you have been thinking about thinking in the wrong way. The simple words from the human child created what could only be described as stunned silence among the galactic representatives. Several alien faces disappeared from the screens, presumably to discuss this revelation with their own people. Maria Santos, the poet, spoke into the silence. Intelligence is not just about knowing the right answers. It is about asking better questions, imagining new possibilities, and creating solutions that did not exist before. Danny Wright, the jazz musician, added, like music, intelligence is not just about following rules. The most beautiful music comes from knowing when to break the rules in ways that create something new. Science Coordinator Yethra turned to address the Galactic Council. We have observed these humans for days now. They do not just process information differently. They seem to experience reality itself in ways we have never encountered. The floating crystal alien pulsed with colors that suggested deep thought. If this is true, then our entire system of evaluating and ranking civilizations may be flawed. We have been measuring intelligence as if it were a single, uniform concept. High Assessor Zenthka's light patterns shifted to something that looked like embarrassment. The humans have not just passed our tests. They have shown us that our tests were asking the wrong questions. They have demonstrated that intelligence itself is far more diverse and complex than we believed possible. Commander Jake Phillips cleared his throat. So what happens now? Do we pass your evaluation? Zenthka was quiet for a long moment. You have moved beyond our ability to evaluate. We came here to determine if humanity deserved a place in galactic civilization. Instead, we have discovered that galactic civilization needs to learn from humanity. The alien moved closer to the human team. For the first time in our species' history, we would like to make a request. Instead of us teaching you about the galaxy, would you consider teaching us about new ways of thinking? Dr. Alan Carter exchanged glances with his colleagues. They had expected to be judged, classified, and assigned a place in some galactic hierarchy. Instead, they had become teachers to civilizations millions of years older than humanity. We would be honored to share what we know, Alan replied. But we have as much to learn from you as you might learn from us. The aliens' light patterns shifted to something that looked like joy. That is perhaps the most intelligent thing anyone has said in this entire evaluation. True intelligence is not about being superior to others. It is about growing together. Captain. Lisa Morgan approached the observation window where the alien ship waited in space. Its crystal surface now reflected not just starlight, but patterns of light that seemed to pulse with new understanding. They came here to put us in a category, she said to Alan, to tell us where we fit in their cosmic filing system. Alan nodded, watching as more alien ships appeared in the distance. Representatives from across the galaxy were coming to meet the species that had changed everything. Instead, we showed them that intelligence cannot be filed away in categories. It is not about fitting into existing systems. It is about creating new ones. Through the communication screens, they could see the effects of their demonstration spreading across the galaxy. Civilizations that had not spoken to each other in centuries were suddenly sharing ideas. Species that had considered themselves intellectually superior were asking questions they had never thought to ask. The impossible had become possible, and in doing so, it had made the entire galaxy a more interesting place. As the first delegation of alien students prepared to arrive at Earth, humanity prepared to take its place not as another civilization to be ranked and catalogued, but as teachers of a new way of thinking that would reshape the cosmos. The galaxy had been looking for intelligence. Instead, it had found imagination, and nothing would ever be the same again.